Welcome back to part 49 of Final Fantasy 15, where today we'll be tackling the other optional dungeon that we could have done the main journey but decided against it. This one's a little bit more out there to find. You have to head towards Insomnia City as if you're trying to go back. You can't, it's blocked off by the Imperials, but if you just hug the right wall as you head towards it, look for a gap in the fence. You might not find it on your first run, but you will find it eventually. There it is. If you go through the gap and just follow it all the way down, you'll find a dungeon, which is the giant sewer dungeon. Of course, the last optional dungeon I leave out is, of course, it ends up being the obligatory sewer dungeon. I would apologise for that, but it's a sewer dungeon in a video game. Like, it's what they decided to do, for goodness sake.
Damn right.
And Crest Home Channels, I feel, is the weaker of the two non-Royal Tomb related dungeons in the game, because this is supposed to be just it's just a maze with not much really else to it. The only annoying thing is that there's a big core room that you need to get to that takes a while to get to, and it takes forever to get out of it, and then when you get out of it you'll find yourself in front of a locked door. There's 4 switches throughout this dungeon that you need to flick in order to unlock that door. And that's where the annoyance comes in. It's not finding your way to the end, because you will find your way to the end before too long. It's making sure you find all the switches along the way. And off memory, when I recorded this, I only knew where 3 was. So you're going to see us get to the end, one of the doors be missing, and I have to backtrack on myself. Here's the first switch. Look at the minimap. If there's a tick on it, you've got it. Also, a lot of the gates and or doors are one way. So if you hated that in Dark Souls, well, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to deal with it here. And at the first there, as you saw there, they pointed towards the ceiling, saying, "Oh, how can we get up there?" To highlight that's where you should kind of be. They won't do that for the rest of the dungeon. Don't get used to it. Additionally, you need to be careful because a lot of the enemies will try and push you down these water slides, which almost never put you forward. They almost always just put you back. They throw you further behind, and you have to work your way back round to where you was. Additionally, over here, I can't remember if this takes us to a treasure or a locked door, but I know we have to go back through that in the end. A treasure. Oh, it's a red choker. Choker's always handy for resistances. You know, we have to go back through the tunnel we just came from. You can also drop into this section there. You might have noticed a vent on the ceiling. If you're on the other side of that, an enemy will break through it and you can get down here easier. That being said, we continue onwards. I do edit out a hell of a lot in this dungeon though. The original recording for this video was close to 40 minutes, and as of now, I might edit it down a little bit more depending on how this goes, but it's currently on 28 minutes 31 seconds. So I might end up editing it down a bit more, but if that's the video length it is, then I haven't edited it any more than this. But it was like 39 minutes beforehand, because there was a lot of dead air where I was either unsure where to go, so lingered around, or was just circling the camera. Or there's just one point where I guess I thought I'd saved the recording but didn't, and so I was just standing still for a few minutes and then came back and started re-recording, and so there's just a huge fight, like 5-minute chunk of me standing around doing shit all that I cut out. I try my best to make it seamless, but this had probably the most cuts of any dungeon that we've done. I mean, hell, not even Costomark had as many cuts as that one. And Costomark's original footage was like 55 minutes long. I just made it, using it ended up shorter because I sped up a chunk of the dungeon since it was a repeat of what we'd previously done. Anyway, the easiest way to know if you're going the right way is pay attention to whether the crew comment on it, because they will always comment on it if you are on the right path or not. More enemies for our trouble. I was trying to get the nuke on him, but you need to actually be in the combat zone for him, because it doesn't consider us in combat here. You have to actually, like... There we go. But this dungeon can be quite difficult as well. The enemies are quite strong, and there is a boss enemy at the end of this. It's not like the previous optional dungeon where there wasn't a boss enemy. this one does have a boss enemy at the end.
Fan of mushy dessert.
Also, yeah, the box for this combat zone is very small, which is why we keep on going in and out of combat.
What can I say?
I can't remember if this is another one-way door or if this is the other side of a one-way door. Hey! Oh no, this is a shortcut back up. Well, this is the setup. When we get down that, we'll have the shortcut back round to this. But from this door, there's also a locked door a little ways away that you can open, which was the one-day door we tried to interact with earlier, so you can get back round. As you can see there, I noticed it, but since I know what routes are the bad routes that'll take us back to the start, I don't need to open it, so I don't bother. Other thing worth mentioning, be wary sprinting near the fence. Those little fences will not protect you from Noctis's AI. Noctis has a movement parkour system built into the game that Noctis will always pay attention to, that you've seen me use many times. If you sprint straight out of fence, Noctis will auto climb over it. That you're going to see that screw me over at several points during this. Well, I say several, there's only one in the recording I keep, but there's a couple other points where he jumped a fence he shouldn't have and I had to quickly go back around. And there's another one where the combat box is actually pretty small, so we keep on going out of it. Well, I say that, it's more that the combat box is in here, the enemies just spawn late.
Watch yourself, Noct. I know. You ready? Like this.
Ow.
This one's just.
But in terms of content we've got left to do in the post-game for those curious, the Comrades Ifrit fight, I've mentioned before, is on hold until they fix that problem. With the EU servers being able to transfer your save file, because otherwise I'd have to start completely afresh, and I don't want to do that. There's alternate versions of the Regalia, which I need to do if I want to show off the post-game dungeon. Then obviously there's the post-game dungeon, because these are the actual main game dungeons that I decided to leave till post. We've done the Adamantoise, we need to fight Omega. There's 3 super bosses tied to each of the episode DLCs. Because you fight Core in episode Gladiolus, Aranea in episode Prompto, and Noctis in episode Ignis. We need to do the score attack mode in episode Gladiolus and the time attack mode in episode Prompto. We've done Armager Unleashed. We need to do... I've got in like vague side quests and hunts, like there's certain side quests I want to show off, I'll do them. We've got training at camp, because there's certain fights you can do at camp if you decide to go for them. Then there's the Vault Dungeon, which I'll only show off one of them, but there's 8 of them, and they're all very long. There's episode The Sky, because I did actually own Type 0 when it was the time you could get it. I got Type 0 brand new, so I got the early alpha episode The Sky, which I want to show off last. And then there's the episode Arden DLC, which comes out in March. And that was me falling over the fence, by the way. But in the grand scheme of it, assuming I'm not missing anything, we're making progress. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is finished before part 60. Well, at least I say that, we don't know how long episode Arding will be. But everything, with the exception of episode Arden, when that comes out in March, should be done before 60, I suspect. I say this, it might go longer, it depends. Like, the Vault dungeons are huge. And so I know I'm only doing one of them, but it is bloody huge. So I don't know if it'll be something where it'll be like, I get it done in a good amount of time, or if it's something that has to be, or if it's something that takes up multiple parts, or whatever. We'll see how that goes. We'll come back to that room in a minute. Be careful walking off over here, because you've got a ladder you can drop down for future comfort. This isn't the one we saw earlier, this is a different section of the map.
Now we have a way back up.
I hope you didn't miss it, because it's going to be the last proper time we hear this track. I say that I can't remember what music tracks plays in the Labyrinth dungeon, but I know they play several different tracks depending on where you are, and there's a huge chunk of it that's in pure silence. But we'll find out when we get to it.
This place is amazing, huh?
Which I am genuinely dreading the maze, because the dungeon took me over 4 hours.
I'm
on my blind playthrough because I didn't follow any walkthrough. I worked it out as I went, and I haven't touched that dungeon since doing it.
Whatever it is.
Also, here's your second Moogle charm. That big open drop on the other side of that fence gate, that's where the end of the dungeon is. But like I said, if you haven't flicked all 4 switches, you can't interact with it. I find 3 and end up having to backtrack, which you're going to see in this part. But thankfully, where the backtrack point you need to take when you climb back up is very close by. So if you're following this along, you can follow this along. You will find them all without having to go the wrong way too many times, sort of thing.
So tired.
I was actually quite surprised at how quickly I found my way through, because this was another dungeon that took me quite a while. There's your second switch. So there's one more in this area we're supposed to get, and the last one is on your climb back to the fancy door that's locked. Like you'll find it en route once you drop down and climb back up. And also when you flick the switch, more mooks come to show up to ruin your day.
Get those muscles moving. Oh, these old things.
But I'm kind of surprised at like how much we've actually got left in the game. But I know the post game's quite big when you think that we started it in part 45, and I'm estimating it'll be around part 60. We'll wrap this all up. Like, it is quite a chunk part of the game. But in the grand scheme of it, this project that I've been working on since March is nearly finished. Like, this gargantuan mammoth task that I stupidly set upon myself, thinking that yeah, I can do it. I'm somehow nearly here now. It's kind of like mad for me,
You sure about where we're going?
especially because like when you think back to like how my upload schedule used to be, for like people who have been here a while know exactly what I mean. Like, I've never been consistent and I've always struggled even when it was my main project. And this wasn't a main project, it was a background project. It only became a main project because there was nothing else I wanted to do this year. I wanted this game, the main story, finished before Christmas, which I achieved. Yeah, the post game's going to continue into the new year, but I can live with that. The main game was finished in November, which is just mad. And Devil May Cry 3 hasn't got that much left in it. The next Let's Play I want to do once both of these are finished, because if I finish DMC 3, I'm not going to start a next Let's Play until I finish this. The next one I want to do, though, is another one in a similar vein to Final Fantasy 15, in terms of it's going to be a gargantuan project I'm going to do in the background. But what will be different, though, and easier in some ways but harder in others, is that it's going to be entirely live, because I feel like it would hurt the experience if it wasn't live. Like, part of the fun of this game that I'm not going to spoil yet is when you play it live, when you have a genuine reaction to it. Whilst this, I want it to be factual and straight to the point, so I record all the footage beforehand when I can concentrate and then do the talking later. Because this was recorded just before Christmas, same with the previous part. And I'm trying to keep my hardest to make it a part every Friday for Final Fantasy 15. It'll probably take up the main log slot, assuming I can keep up with recording, like when Devil May Cry 3 finishes, because DMC 3 I was hoping to get finished before the new year, but I don't know, I'm quite busy next week, so we'll see what happens. Well, I'm quite busy for the rest of this week going into New Year sort of thing. I don't think I'll finish it before then. We've only got a few parts left though.
Kidding me?
Oh, so this is the big drop. This isn't the boss enemy. This is just a big enemy that happens to be waiting for you when you get down here. But this is the end section. If you flicked 3 switches at this point, like if you'd went your own way and having to get to this point, then you're ahead of me. You've done well. I've only flicked 2 along the way. I've missed 1. Because the last one is on your climb back out of here afterwards. But thankfully, if you did miss the same one I missed, don't worry. When we get out of here, I'll show you exactly where it is. And it's not that far from the exit point of this area. Also, Prompto's like further up. In hindsight, I should have like stayed up there, but I felt like no. If anyone's following along, they might not realise how to get up there themselves, and so I leave it. I make Prompto take the leap down. And also, yes, this is an enemy that likes to spam Toad. However, this mini boss doesn't last that long. because he eventually gets stunned. And we're playing as Prompto, and so if you remember rightly, Prompto crackshot wipes the hell out of them. And Trigger Happy also does a lot of the work here for me. There's the stun. So get in there, tap triangle, and watch that health drop. Now you're looking for a ladder. You can also check out this area back here.
Totally like King's Knight.
Actually, I think this might be the way you need to go, but you are looking for a ladder.
I gotta be a 5-star character. Hell no. If anyone here
Careful not to sprint around here. Nox will just jump if you give him the chance. There we go. Oh, iron shavings. Whoopee. This is me trying to speed up by jumping over the other characters. I end up interacting with the energy source there. But this leads back into the main room. On my blind playthrough, I was playing on my older TV screen, which didn't have as good backlight on this, so that ladder there that we're right next to, I didn't see, and I was stuck down here for a little while because I just couldn't see the ladder, and so I didn't know where to look.
keep it together.
But then that was also my own fault because I played the dungeon first thing in the morning. I remember distinctly playing this like first thing in the morning, trying to get through this dungeon. Back in early December 2016.
That was a rather tiring endeavor.
Time for some well-earned R&R.
But seriously, like, I think what will be interesting is at some point in the future, many moons from now, I'll come back to this project, not to like let's play, to watch it back through myself. And I think it'll be interesting to see just like all the commitment and like seeing the points where I'm really enjoying something, the points where I nearly cried, because I have nearly cried at a couple points in this game, and you've heard it in my commentary, like if you've been paying attention. The points I didn't enjoy and see what's changed and whatnot. Like, I kind of like this as almost like an archive of my own footage on YouTube, just with me talking over it. So there's nothing interesting to say about a shimmy across. We do it all the time. Except this one, we don't do this all the time. Don't worry, you can't fall off this section. It's scripted to look like it is, but I've never fallen off, despite best efforts.
Man, if monsters were to jump us now.
Yeah, don't... You say that, but you guys aren't doing this as well. They don't have an animation for doing this. They're just going to cut and appear behind us again. And yes, it does take a long while to get up here. Once you've climbed up the first time, make sure you open the door and make sure you don't fall down there again, because it takes a small eternity to get through up here. And you might be able to see it on the mini-map. There's 2 lit up keys and 2 dimmed out keys. We can't go through that door yet. That's the door to the boss. To the end of this area. And when I got to this bit, this is when I started like dreading, like on this recording, I was like, oh god, where are the other 2? And if you really can't find it and you don't want to follow a walkthrough, to try and find the other ones, just keep on paying attention to the map. Look for routes you haven't been down, where it's like slightly blurred, and just go to it. You'll stumble into it eventually. And if you can't find it and you feel you've explored everywhere, double back on yourself. If the machine's got a tick on it, you've already interacted with it. If it doesn't, you haven't. Also, this enemy won't stop running from me, so I kept on missing it on the way through, which I was getting a little annoyed with, as you can probably tell with how bombaric I get against it. Which, that's not even a word, bombaric. I combined bombastic and barbaric into one there. auto charger. I believe that automatically but slowly fills up either techniques or the armiger. There's one that does techniques, there's one that does the armiger. I can't remember which is which. But that ladder's harder to spot than the last one. And see, now we're back in this main room with another ladder waiting for us. And this one's a long one, so stop playing your Snake Eater. To be fair, I would actually play Snake Eater if I wasn't, like, terrified of the Konami sharks chasing me down. Here's what should be your last machine. But, of course, I missed one, so we're going to have to go hunt down another one. So I twig this, and there's a gate door here. That was a one-way door previously that we can now open. From that point, you might have seen a cut, but I didn't go anywhere. But from that point, head down this way. Okay, don't head down this way. Just follow where I'm going. Okay, so when you go from that point, keep on heading straight. And you'll notice that there's all these doors and routes down here. Boldly take one. And I didn't fancy challenging these guys, so I go back. If it's not the inner two, well, again, it is the inner one. You look for the one that's one left of the far right. If you start on the right, go one left of it, and it's on this side. It's between one of these gaps. That's why I'm checking, because I remember it as I get here. There it is. And you saw me jump for joy a little there. But once you've got all four, you need to go back on yourself.
Did anyone else hear that noise? As though a latch were released.
And they will comment that the door's been opened when you pull all four switches. Which is very nice of them. Yeah, at this point you're going to see me try and work out how I'm getting back. Probably the quickest route is to go back to where those enemies spawn, jump over, take the stairs up and circle round. But I decided to take a unique, different route instead. In going this way. You can go either or. If you're following along, feel free to just follow this route. I mean, you get this earth pendant for your trouble, and you get to drop this ladder that I nearly jumped straight past. Which, if you remember this area, this is where I mentioned beforehand, where you drop an area and I said it can circle round to the front door. You just have to give me a minute to realise where I'm going. Yeah, then the penny drops. There we go. Thankfully, we don't have to do the drop again. We just need to get to that point again. We just need to get to that back door, which we're near enough to now. Just be careful not to sprint off. I don't even think we have to get to that. Let's scrap with that. Wrong way. Wrong way. Come on, there we go. Past me. There we go. Now be careful though. When you're backtracking through this bit, be very careful that you don't drop too far, because there'll be no wall to protect you. Like, if you can, take just a straight descent and go down the long way. But if not, be very wary on your jump, because you don't want to land, Noctis auto rolls, and you go straight to the very bottom again. Because that's a very painful climb. But we're nearly done with this dungeon. So you come around to the door. I can't remember if it opens when you get there or it's already open. Okay, it's already open. Then when you're ready, slide down and you'll be introduced to our boss fight. Haven't done this in a little while. The Jorman Guard is level 50 with 184,200 HP, a strength stat of 22,940, vitality of 205 and spirit of 262. It has a 20% weakness to basic swords, is immune to fire, has a 20% weakness to light, and is resistant but not immune to alterna. Killing it will always drop the drooping whiskers. The strategy for this thing isn't much, to be honest. By the time you get here, you should be more than capable enough of dealing with it. Oh, and by the way, this is when I finally realised that triangle is the attack button I should be using for this. So give me a couple of practices and then I get it. See?
Alright, boys, we're in the home stretch.
And then I finish it off with Legacy of the Lucii. But the strategy is not much. If you need it, either use ice or just wail at its nonsense. But it's not a difficult fight. You fought far worse at this point in the game. I mean, it's already dead. That's what I mean. It's already dead. It's not a difficult fight in the slightest. But it is a boss fight, so I had to do the stat list. And we get a healthy amount of experience for our troubles as well. Now, the boss itself gave us our reward, but I end up looking around because I don't realise it in itself. The Drooping Whisker is your reward. So you're going to see me circle around trying to find it, trying to find something, and just not be able to find anything at all. But that's it, really. I probably could have edited this part out, but I'll leave it in just for the sake of showing you how to get out if you don't want to just skip to the entrance. The ladder's right here. Hey, there you go. And you're back right here, so you can just work your way back up from here. There's also a blood sword there for your troubles, which unfortunately isn't as good as what we've got, but it drains HP. Like, you get HP back for attacking it, so it is kind of neat to have. And I just returned from the entrance from there because you know your way at this point. On the way back, we pick up the sword from Sid that he mentioned at the end of last part, and end up giving it straight back to him on the hopes of getting Engine Blade. Oh no, because after Engine Blade 3 it's Ultima Weapon, but the item we need for it we don't have. Yeah, we need a sturdy helix horn, which we don't have.
Stand up straight, boy.
Getting them isn't too bad. Next to one of the Imperial bases there's a bunch of helixes that have the chance to drop it, so just wail on them and eventually they'll drop it. But we'll rest for the night and call this a part.
I'm all sticky and gross. Woohoo! About time!
That being said, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next part. Like, I don't know what I want to do on the checklist next. Because if I get the alternate versions of the Regalia, the very next step will have to be doing the Labyrinth. And I'm not sure I want to do the Labyrinth next. I haven't recorded the next part yet. I could start a Vault Dungeon, but I want to leave that a little late on. I could do a bit of training at camp. But either way, next time on Final Fantasy 15, I would have worked out what we're doing. But until then, you guys take care now. And I hope you had a good Christmas as well.